Welcome to Staying Sober with Papa Joey. I'm Papa Joey, and this channel is all about your sobriety and mine. Let's get to it. Today starts a 26-part series titled The ABCs of Sobriety. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to go through the alphabet A through Z. Each episode I'll take one letter, and I'll find 2 or 3 words and how those words relate to sobriety. It's pretty basic. I thought this up a few weeks ago when I was looking for content to put on the channel. I wanted to make it informative and fun, so I figured let's try the ABCs of sobriety. So let's begin. Today we'll start, of course, with the letter A, and the 3 words we're going to focus on today are acceptance, attitude, and anchor. Now, the first 2, acceptance and attitude, one's not greater than the other, okay? I think they're both interchangeable. So let's begin, though, with acceptance. Well, acceptance, I believe, is something we all do while we're abusing either drugs, alcohol, or both. And what I mean by that is there comes a time in our life where we know something ain't right. We're doing shit that's constantly getting us in trouble. We're waking up sicker than a dog, trying to get through the day, and all we're thinking about is putting a drink in us or a drug. So we already accept the fact that we're doing it continually. The problem is we don't want to do anything about it. Nobody wakes up one day after, years of having problems in their life, then finally go, oh, I need to accept the fact that I drank too much or I drug too much. It begins early on in our abuse. I know for me, I realized in my early 20s that I had a problem, and I accepted it. I knew every time I went out, shit might get out of control, and I was okay with it. I wasn't okay with when I got in trouble, but I was able to bullshit a lot of people, including myself, to give me a little time, a little buffer, get out of whatever trouble I was in, and then I went right back out. So for me, I already accepted the fact that I drank too much. I just didn't want to do anything about it. Well, acceptance is a two-way street, because it's one thing to accept that we have a problem, and that's a good thing. But then comes the part where we have to accept the fact that, number one, we need to knock it off, we need to stop, and most likely we need some help. Now that's a big part. That's the part of acceptance where we begin to hopefully move forward. Now, many times it doesn't happen that quick, of course. Even if we realize we need help or we need to stop, we don't. And I'm talking again from experience. It took many years for me to finally realize one day after my last drunk, I'm done. I accept defeat. Okay, I no longer accept that I drank a lot. I never did drugs. I wasn't into the drugs. I accepted the fact that I drink way too much, and I accept the fact now that that was the last time I was going to get my ass kicked with alcohol. Now comes a time where I have to accept I need help. I need to go someplace. I need to talk to somebody. I need to do something because I don't think I could do it on my own. So that's when I walked into the rooms of AA. Now, again, I'm not going to push AA on anybody. I'm just going to say how I did it. So for me, the big part of acceptance was me realizing, again, that I got a problem, and then accepting the fact that I need to do something about it. And I did. And that began 30 plus years of me being sober. A lot of times it's not easy to accept the fact that, in our eyes, we screwed up so many times. It's not easy to accept that well, never going to drink alcohol again? That's crazy. I would never have thought that years ago that I would never, have a cold beer or a mixed drink. That's ludicrous. That's what I did. But it came to that point where I had to accept the fact that I can no longer do it. And I didn't think I was giving up. I just knew that I don't want to get beat up anymore. So I had to accept the fact I needed to move forward. Now here comes the second word, attitude. Attitude now plays a huge role in once we accept the fact that we need help. And for me, I had to keep an attitude of, yes, this is going to be good. Now, I was fearful. I didn't know what to expect when I walked into an AA room. But my attitude was, I'm doing something good for myself finally. And not just good for me, good for my kids at the time. And I was still married at the time. So I thought for my wife. Didn't work out that way, but that's a whole different story. But anyways, it was something good for me, so I had a good attitude about it. I also understood that I needed to keep a good attitude, a positive attitude as I moved forward, because if my attitude was going to be, oh man, I really don't want to quit drinking. Man, this sucks. What am I going to do now? I like going to the bars, listening to live music. I play drums. What am I going to do if I'm playing drums? I can't drink. Oh man, this is going to suck. Well, that's the wrong attitude. I mean, for me, I know if I didn't keep my attitude in check, there may be a possibility that I would pick up again. Even though I already put it here first, that I don't want to drink anymore, and here knowing that I don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what, and I am going to become a person who no longer drinks alcohol. I knew all that shit, but I had to have a good attitude. So early on, I maintained the attitude of, this is good. This is good. Now, other things in my life may have been going on where I did get a bad attitude. But my attitude has always been that when it came to sobriety, like it's a good thing, and no matter what goes on, I'm holding on to my sobriety. So you can have, multiple things going on in your life, and your attitude can vary from, one situation to the next. I don't believe, people always say you got to always maintain a calm attitude, which we should. But let's face it, things get out of hand sometimes. We react differently. But if you always remember you're the type of person that shouldn't put alcohol in you or drugs, then you can handle, in my opinion, any situation that comes before you. Now, do you always handle it right? Hell no. I'm talking from experience. I've certainly screwed up many times in sobriety, many times because during that situation, I may have had a bad attitude. I may have overreacted about a situation that came up. However, once I calmed down, I realized most of the time I overreacted. I did or said something wrong. And if I needed to apologize, of course I would apologize and try to right whatever wrong that I did. But I just moved forward. And I also kept that attitude of, I don't drink no matter what, and no matter what means no matter what. And early on, there were some times where thought would pop into my mind about a drink. I can't lie to you, but I never acted on it. And that was because my attitude was, I'm not picking up a drink. And I don't believe it was like white knuckling it. I just knew that's not what I wanted to do. And again, I may have reacted in a situation the way I shouldn't have. Okay. But I know if I had put a drink in me, it totally would have made whatever issue I was going through a lot worse. So keep in mind your attitude and acceptance kind of work together. Now, when this episode is over, take a little time and ask yourself, how's your attitude towards, sobriety? And have you accepted the fact that probably shouldn't drink or drug anymore? Now, I know for a fact, and this is probably a little difficult to say to some people, but if you're using illegal drugs, definitely shouldn't be doing it. You already know that. I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, it's, having a drink, going into a bar, I mean, that's somewhat normal. Abusing's not. But going on the street buying illegal drugs, shit, you don't even know what's in those drugs any longer. And that's going to be a different podcast, and because I lost somebody very close to me due to a drug overdose. And when I get to the point where I feel comfortable talking about it, I most certainly will. It's coming close, but it's still very emotional for me when I talk about it. So I just got to be, for me, in the right frame of mind. But, again, attitude and acceptance is huge. Now, the next word is anchor. And what do I mean by anchor? Well, think about like a boat out in the water, okay? We'll just use like a lake or whatever. It's in the middle of the lake. They drop the anchor because they kind of want it to stay in place. And even though there's some waves happening, that boat isn't going anywhere because it's anchored to the bottom. Now a storm picks up and you can't get going for some reason. Well, you've got to hope that anchor's strong enough to hold you through the storm when your boat's a-rocking, right? It's kind of like when we get sober early on. Our anchor needs to be a support group. My anchor at the time was AA. Well, not AA. I would say some of the people that I met in AA. Now, I would go to a meeting. I would, listen to whatever topic. I would talk usually about whatever topic there was. And then afterwards, there's a few people that I would hang out with. And if there was something going on in my life, I would pull them aside, especially if I knew I could trust them, and say, hey, man, this is what's going on. There was a lady that I met early on by the name of Joni. I met her my first day of AA. Became friends for years. She passed away a few years ago, but she was a sweetheart of a lady. I could always pull her aside and say, Joni, can I talk to you about something? And we would sit down, and I knew whatever I told her wasn't going to be repeated, and I'd have a nice conversation with her. And I needed that at times, because no matter in my mind how tough I think I am, I'm not. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and sometimes I need to get out what's bugging me. Even now, after 30 plus years, I have to remember that sometimes I need to talk to some people, because life goes on, situations happen. I find myself in positions of uneasiness. Now, I don't think about drinking or anything, but, I just realize sometimes I need to talk to somebody. Say, hey, this is what I'm going through. I don't want to drink or anything like that, but I need some, I need another opinion on how I'm handling a certain situation. And I always go to people I trust, of course. I'm fortunate. I got a great family. And if I really need to talk to somebody about something, I can call them and trust them. Trust, what they think I should, do in that certain situation. So it's key for anybody, to have an anchor, especially if you're new. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting sober, the best thing you could do, number one, is go through that acceptance that I spoke about. Make sure that, now you accepted the fact you need help, all right? And you accept the fact that you got a problem. And your attitude is going to be, this is going to be good. I'm going to move forward and do something about it. Kind of think about a person who's overweight. It gets to a point in their life, right? They look at themselves in the mirror and they go, oh my Lord, look what I did to myself. Over time, it was getting worse and worse until they finally said, enough of this bullshit. I'm going to do something about it. And what do? Most of the time, they go talk to somebody, and then they get themselves on some type of a program, maybe going to the gym, exercising a little, cutting down their calories. But the important part for people to do that is they've got to have the right attitude. Right? Because if they were waking up every morning going, oh man, I got to go to the gym today. I don't want to go to the gym. There's some chocolate cake at the bakery down the street. That's what I really want. They're just going to be getting worse and worse. So the attitude is most important. Now, speaking of people who put on weight, and sometimes in these episodes, I'll just go off because something will trigger me that I've thought about for years, and I'll just bring it up. Think about this for a moment. For me, okay, and for you, not drinking or drugging. We make it a big deal. Oh, it's a big deal. I don't need alcohol in my life to live, and I'm pretty sure you don't. And I don't need drugs in my life to live. Pretty sure you don't. Unless you're on certain drugs because the doctor prescribes them and they're in check, everything is okay, then that's a different story. But you understand what I mean. Somebody who's got to lose weight, somebody who has eating disorder, somebody who is obese, they still have to eat. So their drug that took control of their life, they still have to eat. So they have to really get into the mental mindset and have the attitude like, this is great. I am never going to get back to the way I was. And they have to learn really how to handle their drug of choice, which was food. And over time, the people who are successful understand that I've got to watch my calories, I've got to eat, and I have a tendency to overeat, so they've got to constantly be in check. For myself, and maybe for you, I just understand I don't put booze in me anymore. Done, move forward, and the story. I don't have to continually fear that I'm going to overindulge in anything because I'm not putting booze in me or drugs. So if you think about it, you really don't have it that bad. We make it bad right here. Okay, we make it bad because we're wondering what other people are going to think of us. People we used to hang out with, they drink. Now we're not going to drink. Or maybe you were a closet drinker, and you start to think, I don't know how I'm going to get through life without alcohol or drugs. Well, you're going to learn. You're going to learn because the alternative isn't that great. But that, again, all comes to how your attitude is and accepting the fact that you can't do it. It's not a big deal. I've talked to a lot of people for years about this. When people say to me, how can you stay sober for so long? Well, it's just what I do and I'm okay with it. I'll do a quick story and then I'll end the podcast. I was running a bar. Early on in sobriety, I was a partner in a nightclub, and then I managed other bars. So one day I come out of my office, and it was a long, rectangle bar. And as I was going to one end, I noticed somebody there that I knew from back in the day when I attended AA. Now, at that time, I was about 9 years sober. And right away, he noticed me. And what I remembered about this particular person is we used to talk all the time. He used to always come to the meeting on a bicycle. The reason he was always on a bicycle was because he had a few DUIs and he couldn't get his license back. I think he had 5 years or 6 years, something like that. So I always remembered him for that. So I see him now at the bar, and he's drinking. So when I walked up to him and said, "Hey, how you doing?" He looked up, and immediately he knew who I was. But I didn't say nothing to him. Just, "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. You doing all right?" Yeah. I went and did something else, and I came back, and he says, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." "What?" He said, "How do you do it?" And I said, "Do what?" He says, "Work in a bar like this." I said, "Well, you knew I worked in the bars." When I was in the rooms, I told people, I got a job in a bar or whatever. He says, "Well, how do you do it?" And I said, "Well, you really want to know?" And he goes, "Yeah." So all of a sudden, something came over me. I picked up his beer. I walked it over to the trash. I threw it in the trash. I walked up to him and I said, "I don't drink that shit anymore." And he just looked at me. "Oh, yeah." I said, "That's it. I just realized I can't do it." And then he said, "I just bought that." I said, "You want another one?" "Yeah." So I went and I grabbed him another beer and gave it to him. Well, later on, I had to leave. I came back. He was still there. And the band started playing and everything. Finally, I realized he was getting way too tanked. So like I've done before with other people, I take their keys and I call them a cab. Well, with him, I make sure I grabbed his keys. I called the cab. He wasn't happy one bit. Well, he came back the next day and asked me for his keys. I kept the keys in the office. He said, "That wasn't right what you did to me last night." I said, "It wasn't right." I said, "You do realize you were pretty fucked up." "Well, I wasn't that bad." I said, "Listen, let's get something straight. All right, I know your story. I know what happened to you. It happens to a lot of people. They lose their license. But I kept on hearing you bitch and moan about it all the time in the AA rooms. Okay? Now you got your license. Now you come into a bar. You didn't know I was working, and that's okay. But I couldn't sit there and watch you get effed up and then leave. Maybe get yourself another DUI or hurt yourself or get into an accident. So I'm sorry I couldn't do that. But here's your keys. I wish you the best of luck, but don't come back into my bar drinking, because I'm not going to go through this with you." I said, "I think you probably should get your ass back into the rooms of AA or call some people that used to hang out with and get clean, get yourself straight again before you end up, maybe sitting in jail for a while." And unfortunately, it was the last time I saw that person. I don't know what happened to him after that. Maybe he said, "You know what, Joey's right." Or maybe he said he's full of shit and went someplace and had another drink. So, folks, you have to keep your attitude in check. Right? Got to accept the fact. Shouldn't put booze in you, and understand it. And then get a support group. Get an anchor. Somebody that you can call or go see or whatever when you need that help. Okay? Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed the first of the many of the ABCs of sobriety. Come on back. If you haven't subscribed, I would appreciate it if you do. Hit the alert button so you'll be notified when the next episode comes up. And till the next time, this is Papa Joey, and I'll see you on Staying Sober. Have a good one.